Dan Buckley and Hammy Code.
Hi everyone, we are in the money slot straight after lunch. I hope you are well fed. Dan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Welcome. It's good to, I guess, show the behind the scenes of the NRL that not a lot of people get to see. Everyone sees it on Friday Night Footy, but hopefully today we'll get to give you a look behind the scenes.
I have to ask you, do you have a football team?
I do. I was born into royalty. My dad was a Manly fan, so I inherited that, which I get the same reaction at work.
Yeah.
But
okay, we might move on then to the topic at hand and leave Manly where it is. Dan, I think when people think about recruitment and talent acquisition, I don't feel like it's the natural fit to think about the NRL necessarily.
No, that's, I guess, one of our big challenges is, particularly around recruitment, is everyone sees us as a sport. No one actually sees us as an employer. But I guess we're a business like everyone else in this room, and we have the same challenges. So the NRL, whilst rugby league's been around 112 years, the NRL as it exists today is only 8 years old. We were formed in 2012 under the Commission. So we've been going through a growth phase. And, if we look back then, we were 40 staff turning over $100 million. Today we have 540 staff turning over $600 million. So we've gone on quite a substantial kind of growth, and with that came a lot of recruitment.
And so what were some of the challenges you faced when you joined the NRL as a talent specialist?
Well, being the first talent specialist, I turned up and there was absolutely nothing there. So there was no ATS, there was no processes or policies. Recruitment was kind of done ad hoc or by HRBPs and some agency use. And so when I joined, it was, I guess, we just signed a new broadcast deal. Our previous broadcast deal had Telstra run all the digital assets, so NRL.com, all the club sites and apps. Under the new broadcast deal, we decided to bring those in-house. So that meant our digital team had to go from 6 to 100 in a 12-month period, hence hiring someone to look after the talent side. So and that's the reason I joined. Yes, I'm an NRL fan, but for me it was more the opportunity about what can this do or what can I do and how can I build this from scratch and do it in a way that we think will not only attract good people and diverse people and people that you wouldn't necessarily expect to work at the NRL, but also do it in a way that sets us up for future growth, etc. So I kind of looked at it, had nothing, had a fairly limited budget, put in ATS is probably the first place most people start. That obviously made a massive difference. I then looked at things like how requisitions were formed. Back in the day, I used to get a piece of paper on my desk with 5 signatures to say, okay, Dan, here's a job.
Did they fax
it's
it to
approved. You? No, it'd literally land on my desk with, you wouldn't even know whose signature it was. So, I digitalized that. The onboarding process, so it was very manual driven. So our HRBPs hated me at the time because at that stage we were, hyper growth. I was hiring 4 or 5 people a week. So they were busy, basically copy and pasting over old contracts, sending emails of, contracts with PDFs of tax file forms and bank details, and it's just a really bad experience, And then you got candidates that are getting those emails and they're at work, so they've even got to print it out of the printer at work and try and, get a signature on it and scan it back to you to accept. So I put in a system called Onboard Express, which kind of digitalised all of that, and got Todd Greenberg to do kind of welcome videos for staff and just really kind of streamline the process so that it was a lot easier so that we could, grow at the stage and the rate that we needed to grow.
Okay. So that journey of digital transformation is something that I hear a lot in my job from our customers. We're all on this journey in some way, shape or form. What I also hear a lot is some lofty goals around Indigenous hiring and diversity hiring. I would love you to share a little bit around the Indigenous hiring program and journey that you guys have been on, because there's something pretty remarkable going on at the NRL.
Yeah, so I guess, so the NRL, we've got 4 key beliefs. So we're positive, we're united, we're disciplined, and the main one is we're inclusive. So rugby league's a game for everyone, and the NRL's a workplace for everyone. So we kind of took a step back and said, okay, look, there's so many forms of diversity. It comes in all shapes and sizes. What are the 2 areas that we want to focus on and we think we can make the most inroads on? And for us, we chose our Indigenous community. So we're on a reconciliation action plan. When I started 3 years ago, we were at 2.5%. The plan was to get to 5%. Proud to say we're now at 9.1. So within 3 years, we've grown 7.5% in terms of our Indigenous population at work. And to put that into perspective, the Indigenous community in Australia is 3% of the population. So for us to have 9.1 of our population is pretty significant.
And what do you think are some of the key things you've done as an organisation to make that happen? Because a lot of people talk about that goal, but what are the key things that you've done differently?
Yeah, I think it's funny. Like a lot of my mates go, it's easy. You work for the NRL. Everyone wants to, all the Indigenous, want to work for the NRL. And I was like, well, I'm not signing the next Greg Inglis. My last Indigenous hire was a senior legal counsel in our integrity unit. So, we're looking at, how do we, integrate, all facets of our business. So we looked at the little things and what we could do as a business. So, the way we wrote our adverts like everyone's doing, where we position them. We used, I used staff as brand ambassadors, so Indigenous employees, to go to their communities and to spread it through their networks. Simple things like we put an acknowledgement of country sign on our front door at work. I found these great didgeridoos up on level 3. They're in a storage. There were all the team didgeridoos that they did on the Federation round or Indigenous round a few years back, and I brought that down to storage and put it right in the front office. So anyone that's been to Rugby League Central, it's the first thing you see. So what we did was we created an environment where not only did they feel welcome, but they felt safe. I had if I was interviewing an Indigenous employee, I made sure I had an Indigenous candidate, I made sure I had an Indigenous employee on every interview. Similar to what we do with, female applicants, where we try and get gender balance on, hiring panels, etc. We did the same on the Indigenous front. And for us, it was a combination of a lot of small things that turned the dial. Okay.
And let's talk about women in the NRL for a minute, because despite being a Queenslander, sorry everybody, yeah, you can boo me as well. As a woman, I don't think about the NRL as being somewhere that I might aspire to work. So I imagine that the pathway you've had to attract talent, but also retain that talent in your business has been a challenge for every organisation, let alone the National Rugby League.
Absolutely. And this was highlighted probably a couple of years back. We had the off-season from hell. We had 3 players charged with, crimes against women, which not only impacted my job in order to attract women to the NRL, it impacted my job to attract anyone to the NRL. Everyone I was reaching out to was kind of like, ooh, NRL, don't know if I want that on my resume at the time. It impacted staff engagement. We do pulse surveys like everyone else, and that took a massive hit in terms of people being proud to work for the brand. So again, we kind of looked at it and said, okay, well, how can we change this? What can we do to, because what you see and read in the papers is, a small minority of a playing group, which, I don't recruit the players. We have 540 staff that aren't taking the field every week, that, aren't out at nightclubs and doing whatever. So for us, it was, how do we change the perception? And again, it was the little things. We used gender decoders like everyone else. We changed the language. We removed the bullet points. We focused our attention on, where are these women that we want to employ? I get 10,500 applications a year. 80% of those are fans that want to work for the game, which, we love, and we love hearing from our fans, but we're a business like everyone else, and we're competitive like everyone else, so we need the top talent, we need the best talent, we need to find out where they're at. So I use simple things like brand ambassadors, again, staff as brand ambassadors, so user groups, Facebook groups, sorry to give Facebook a plug,
okay.
But, so there's, Facebook in...
there's a high percentage of women using Facebook.
Yeah, but a simple thing like we've got NRL.com, which has 100 digital staff that run NRL.com. We produce all the content. There's journos, there's media, there's a whole remit there. So, I used a few of the women in our digital team who were joined a Facebook group to, Women in Media, and I got them to front it, because I obviously can't join that group. So I used our own staff to get into areas that we couldn't get to. The other significant change, which it sounds so easy, but it made such an impact, I stopped making the phone calls. So if I was calling a woman that was, potentially an applicant, I got my female colleague to do it. So the first voice they heard from the NRL wasn't a male voice. If they came in for an interview, I would take them around on a tour so they could see the place and see the place is full of women. We've taken it from 75% male to 75-25 to it's now 65-35 within 2 years. We'll be 60-40 by the end of the year. The last 2 years alone, I've hired 360 people at a 50-50 gender split. So for us, the boys club is no longer, and it's definitely a place for everyone.
And so the big part, attracting women and Indigenous hires is great, but we think about keeping women and retaining them in the workforce. That is a challenge that every organisation has. What are some of the things that you've done outside of the recruitment process to help women want to stay and work for the NRL?
Yeah, great question. We looked at everything. So we looked at our policies. Gender pay gap is obviously a big area for us or for everyone. So we analysed that. We made, rectified it where needed to. We pay superannuation on parental leave, so not a lot of organisations do that as well. The other area that we found was, women take, potentially a couple of gaps in their careers by having, children. So what we didn't want to do was have them disadvantaged by doing that. So the day they come back, they take 9 months off, 12 months off, however long off, they get backdated all of their superannuation. We've created a family-friendly environment where it's, there's flexible work hours, you can work from home, you can, some people bring their kids in school holidays. And that's just not for females as well. Like, I'm a single dad, I have my son, half the week. So, there's Mondays, Tuesdays, I need to leave to pick him up from school. I need to, he started kindergarten 2 weeks ago. On the Monday, on the Wednesday, I get a call at lunchtime. I'm midway through an induction. Hey, Jonah's sick, can you come and get him? And that's...
We all love that phone call.
Yeah, so, but I was managed to balance my day, and look, no one even blinked. Like 3 years ago when I was doing it, I kind of snuck out the back door and, you wouldn't want it to be, kind of seen that you were leaving early. But now, like, I guess I'm the poster boy of it at work and encourage other dads to kind of do the same because it's not,
The importance of setting that standard and driving accountability at the organisational level, right? It's important that it happens across the board.
And I think, like, none of us are paid by the hour, right? Unless, like, our casual staff are, but a lot of us are paid to, perform a role and to create outcomes. And, we all know with smartphones, you never get away from work. So for us, it's about integrating and, you'll hear a lot about it with a lot of speakers about, work-life balance is gone. It's about blended, work-life together. And that's what we've really kind of fostered. And it's actually allowed us to retain a lot of our female staff.
Amazing. I think these are the things that, I don't know about you, but I know my customers that I work with are looking for. The example, everyone wants a silver bullet, but it sounds like it was a lot of the little things that added up to get the results over time.
Absolutely. Like, I use the analogy at work all the time. Like, it's the little 1%ers. It's like going to the gym. If you go to the gym for one day, you're probably not going to see results. But if you go for an extended period of time, in 6 months' time, you're going to look back, you'll see some results. In 12 months' time, you'll see more results. So for us, there is no silver bullet. It's not like, here, this is how you're going to suddenly increase your Indigenous population or your female headcount. You've just got to get the little things right. And, we heard a lot this morning about the, future and AI and all the rest. Like, don't lose the human element as well, because people want to obviously connect with humans. And I think if you can show that and you can show compassion, in your interview process, on the way in, throughout their whole experience, they'll want to stay. If people are having a good experience, why would they leave?
Agreed. I'm pretty sure that we all want to go work for Patagonia after the last session would be my only disclaimer potentially. Dan, you have a lot to be proud of. You have achieved a heck of a lot in a very short period of time, but it's not done. This whole thing is a journey for each and every one of us that is looking to hire a diverse and inclusive workforce and keep them growing and developing. What is next on your journey at the NRL? What's the focus for you guys?
Yeah, so the big ticket item for us at the moment, so I've hired 500 people in the last 3 years. So for us now, it's like, how do we keep that group? We've assembled an amazing array of staff and such a diverse staff. How do we keep them? So I've actually got a final interview on Friday for an L&D manager who will hopefully join my team, and I think that's the next component for us. It's how do we develop them? How do we nurture them? We use things like Gallup Strengths. I'm a certified coach who kind of roll out L&D programs throughout the NRL at the moment, but it's how do we keep people learning, challenged. I know I've been in recruitment 18 years. I know people, every 3 years they want a new job. That's fine, but not necessarily do they have to change organisations to do that. So that's where we want to get to. We want to get to, okay, that's fine for you to aspire to have a new job in 3 years' time, but you don't necessarily need to leave the NRL. So what can we put in place to foster that? We've just launched a Future Leaders program, which again is building capability internally for us, with the plan to also send staff out.
Hashtag better together. I'll pay you later for that one. Thank you, Dan. Dan, it is inspiring to hear someone not just have goals, but to actually share a little bit about the how, the tactical things. What's that one thing that you can do differently? I want to thank you for sharing your story. It's not always an easy one to get up and share in front of this many people, the work that you're doing. So massive thank you from us.
No, thank you. It's, as I said, it's nice for the NRL to be, I guess, seen as not just a sport. It's, we're a business like everyone else, and we all have faced the same challenges. So awesome. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dan.